Hotel history is created for adult audiences. Episodes may contain language and subject matter that some may find upsetting. This episode contains references to suicide. Hotel history. We take you with us through the sordid history and scandals of some of the world's most famous and infamous hotels. I'm Dieta.
And I'm Yael. Let's get started.
All right, so Yael, tell me why the Plaza is what really set this podcast off.
So basically what happened was I've been going to the Plaza since I was a kid. I'm from New York. And I went with my cousin and we had like a drink there. We were discussing like the history and all that stuff. Or I don't remember the exact events, but basically when I was talking about all these things I knew about the Plaza, I was like, this is actually really interesting and there's so much more to learn. Maybe I should do research. My cousin was really interested. I wanted to have like the tea experience in the Palm Court, which is well known, like tea time. It's also really expensive if anyone wants to know. Be prepared. I didn't end up doing it, but it kind of like got me interested. And then I bought the book, The Plaza by Julie Satow. And I'm just like, I want to start a podcast about hotels because I'm really fascinated by a lot of hotels all around. But the Plaza is also really dear to my heart. So I'm like, this might be a good start. It's also very ambitious.
Absolutely.
I did not realize because I was telling you how every single time I Googled the Plaza, there's a new article about the Plaza. And they're like, did you know this? And did you know that? And you think you knew everything. And then you read the book. And then there's another book. And although the book, The Plaza by Julie Satow, is like thoroughly researched and it's really good. We highly recommend.
Yes, when I started reading it, I didn't know that there was so much to the story of the Plaza. It's really fascinating. It's definitely an institution and it has the history to back up that reputation.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to fit in all the information on one episode or
at all.
Even like 100.
Yeah, we will be picking and choosing. There's just too much.
And I bet someone will listen and be like, they forgot to mention this really good fact. And I can just Wikipedia it. Okay, then Wikipedia it. Don't listen.
This got so aggressive so early on. No, for sure, pick up the book. Read everything you can about it because it is fascinating. But just know that we're not going to be able to fit it all in.
Yeah, we'll get some things wrong and make things up. I'm kidding. I mean, you know what? I just read an article and the person already was fucking up the whole entire thing. And they were like, so at the Plaza when John Lennon and Yoni Oka were alive. And I'm like, I don't think this guy has the facts right. So if he can write an article and publish it with no like, I don't know. No fact checking. No one was like, you spelled Yoko's name wrong. Maybe he was like, oh, Yoko, that can't be a name.
That can't be
it
right.
Must be Yoni.
And also, she is still alive. Last time
I got worried there.
I was like, wait, did we miss one? Oh no. So yeah. So you grew up in New York, so the Plaza was just always there for you.
Yeah. So most people I know were not obsessed with the Plaza. I mean, I think if you lived on the Upper East Side of New York City, then you knew it. And like if you were rich and from money, but being from Brooklyn, like none of my friends cared. But my mom taught me at a young age that you always need to go to the bathroom whenever you leave the house. So the first stop, we would go into the city and go straight to the Plaza. I was like, gotta use the bathroom. We were on the train for about an hour. Or like 40, and you're with kids, 45 minutes, and we usually go to a museum or something. We always had like our New York City day trips because they were cheap and accessible and free. And basically my mom's like, okay, we live here, take advantage. Always the Plaza, always use the bathroom. And then I got kind of obsessed with it. I loved Eloise. If you know anything about the Plaza, you'll know the story about Eloise. And I started like an Eloise collection, and I was just like, whatever this life is, I want it. It's nothing like the life I have. It smells like wealth. Like you walk in, it smells so good. I think they just have huge ass flowers everywhere, but they put something in the air where you're like, the air is so much better. Yeah, money. And they treat you really nicely. I never went into the Plaza and felt like they were like, oh, you're poor. Get out of here.
Yeah, I loved that. As I was reading, like there were a few themes that really stuck out, and the fact that the Plaza was always for the public, like open to the public, was really amazing to me, because I always felt like if I was not a guest at a hotel, that I wasn't supposed to be in there. So I love that people feel welcome at the Plaza even if they're not a guest.
The Plaza taught me that that's not true. I feel at home at every hotel I go to now, and I'm like, I'm going to use your bathroom. It's a great trick because most of them have a public bathroom and they'll let you use it.
Yeah, see, I always felt like, okay, we got to go in and just look like we belong here, stroll in, don't look at anybody, don't make eye contact. But no, turns out you're allowed to use the bathroom.
Well, that works too.
Yeah.
I don't even ask anyone. I just like go in. I'm like, I'll figure it out. Like no one needs to touch. I always know where a bathroom is. I always can smell one.
Like literally and metaphorically.
Yeah. I'm like, it's in here, this way. And if there's a key, I'll come up with a story. Whatever. Yeah. Hotels are great. I think there's a lot of good in hotels, and I think the Plaza is like really, just they'll let you come in. They know people are there to just take pictures, and I mean, you can't actually record in one room. They asked us not to. They were like, because people were there, and but for the most part, and even the way they said it, can you not? They were really nice about it, because they don't know who's staying there, and you don't want to get anyone upset if they're staying there and they're spending like millions of dollars.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I imagine people spend at the Plaza, millions of dollars.
That version of customer service does have a certain tier they've got to meet. Yeah.
Yeah. So should we get into the history?
Yeah.
Well, before that, I want to ask you what interests you about this, because I approached you. I told you I wanted to start it, and then I was like, you don't have time, but then you made time in your life.
I did, which is a feat.
Yeah. So
I'm really proud of myself.
So I want to know what interests you about hotels and like history and stuff like that.
Well, I'm a history buff, and I really love niche history, like going into one specific little area and learning new things about it. And I had just never even thought about the history of hotels. But as soon as you mentioned it, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of them have been around for a really long time. Obviously, everyone knows about all of the haunted hotels. Those definitely have already, I think, quite a bit of publicity around their histories. But just the regular people history of who stays in hotels, and especially a really famous one like the Plaza that's been around for over 100 years at this point, it's got to have some good stories. So yeah, I want to know those stories, and I love the glamour, and so I know a hotel like that is going to have great parties, great interesting people staying there. I want to know those stories.
Yeah,
Just growing up, like I grew up in Texas, so my idea of the Plaza is purely from the movies. I only know it from Home Alone and Bride Wars, and the mention of it in like Sabrina, like the classic movies. Like it's just always been around, and so to me it is glamour. It is New York. That's like when you think of New York, the Plaza is the first hotel you think of.
Yeah, you think of like old, rich New York. Yes. It symbolizes luxury, and that's why people reference it, because it's like, ooh, the Plaza.
Exactly. I mean, when Macaulay Culkin steps out of the Plaza and into a Lamborghini with a pizza waiting for him, that is the height of luxury.
And then Donald Trump just happens to be walking by. Yeah, no, it's great, and I think there's also, to go back to just hotel history, there's psychology with history, with hotels. I mean, there's psychology in history too, but with the way people behave in hotels, why people like hotels, why I think hotels won't ever go away, even with Airbnb, and everyone's like, oh, Airbnb is replacing hotels. I don't think so.
Whatever, not with how much they charge you to clean it, and then you have to clean it yourself.
Well, that, but I mean, that's like a new problem. But I think in general, it gets Airbnb is like a personal experience. You're meeting someone. They want to know who you are. You can't be anonymous. Well, you can go into an hotel and you can be a new person.
Right.
And it's really exciting. And there's something, the way that they treat you, they know this. They kind of all know everyone's dirty laundry, but they don't treat you any differently. Unless like you really misbehave and then they have to kick you out. But that's a different story. The ones who are like regulars know. And even at a bar, like you get a regular, and I even have someone, I'm a bartender, and he'll come in and he has a new girl every single time. And we just pretend like this, all right. And he's talking about marrying her, and she knows. They always are like, "You're paying me by the hour, please." But it's really funny. Like you don't say anything, and I think it's the same thing with hotels. Like you can come in, they know who your wife is, they know who is your friend,
Right.
in quotation marks, and they know what you're doing. It's also, if you don't want anyone to know, you don't be obvious about it, but you can just, it's like you can give them a different name. You could, maybe you can't do that because they have the reservation with your, I don't know. There's a lot of things you can do.
Yeah.
And I think it makes it interesting because people behave differently when they think they can get away with something,
Right.
and that they're like a new person. And that's why hotels, that's where all the weird stuff happens.
I love weird stuff.
Yeah. It's still happening right now. Hotels across the world. There's like, I don't know, some history is being made, some story. Unfortunately, a lot of bad stuff that only comes to mind.
Yeah. That's okay. We're going to give you some good stuff
Yeah.
too.
Lots of babies being made.
Definitely.
Okay, so we're going to actually talk about the first part of the plaza's history. So, when it was made, all that stuff. Do you want to start?
Sure, yeah. So I guess we should start kind of with the people who really made it happen. These high rollers that got into the real estate game and really wanted to make a name for themselves, and going into hotel real estate was a way to do that. So first off, we've got Harry Black.
Harry S. Black.
Harry S. Black. Sorry, yes, I forgot to put the S in my
Yeah,
notes.
no, because every time I read it in the book, like she mentions the S. She's like, this is not my buddy. This is like a real professional that lived. And
so, our good old friend Harry, he actually started several banks and stores, but the way he got into the real estate game was he married into it, as so often happens.
Yeah. But before that, first of all, to everyone listening who doesn't know where the plaza is, it's in Manhattan, New York. It's on 59th and 5th Avenue, right next to the entrance of Central Park. And it was originally built in 1883 to 1890, but they tore it down. They wanted to make it even bigger and more like lavish. And they started building it, I think, in 1902 or 1905. And they finished it and opened it in 1907. So there was like the first one, they were like, nope, not big enough, not fancy enough.
Yeah.
And I don't know who decided that, but they must have seen how things are going, because it was the Gilded Age, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if anyone watched the show, you kind of see how like new money's coming about. I mean, New York is, the fact that you can make a hotel and you're one of a kind.
Yeah.
You're like one of the few hotels. It kind of like, it was like a frontier of land and
and
New York.
They were definitely far-sighted, I think, for this site, because it was not like a super fancy area at this point. Like they're talking about, it was kind of surrounded by a little bit of.
Well, they had the Vanderbilt mansion. I think it was
It was
becoming.
up and
Yeah,
coming.
up and coming. Like there was the old money and the new money, and there was a lot of new money, and the old money was always like judging the new money, but it was barren. If you look at pictures, it was like nothing around. I mean, Central Park probably was bigger than than it is now, and it's all grass. But the fact that they tore down the first try, like it wasn't that they just put like a shack up, you know? This is a lot of work went into it. And they're like, no, no, no. These people want class. This is not classy enough. We need to go bigger or go home. It almost feels like Trump did build, like he was he should have been the original. I can imagine like a Trump character is like, forget about it. This is not more gold. We need more. I don't know how he sounds. I'm doing a terrible Trump.
I can't do the impression.
It's going to be fabulous.
But yeah.
It's going to be
the
amazing.
greatest hotel.
Yeah, the greatest. But yeah, then what happened was with the Harry S. Black and all that stuff. But I just wanted to mention that it was not the first
this
try.
was not the first plaza. So Harry S. Black, he marries into the George A. Fuller family, who is already a famous person because he basically invented skyscrapers. So he's definitely a mogul. Harry S. Black falls in love with his daughter, gets married, and starts working for his father-in-law. And then when his father-in-law dies, he gets to run the company, and he starts making some very aggressive bids, and really starts making the company known for some iconic buildings, like they were in charge of the Flatiron Building.
Oh, right, yeah.
And also Macy's Herald Square, the flagship.
Whoa, those places still exist, by the way.
Yeah, so like he was already doing some big things before the plaza, but he wanted the plaza to really make a name for himself. And so he went in, he became partners with Beinecke. What's his first name? Bernard.
Yeah, Bernard Beinecke. These names.
I know.
I feel like I dream about them because I've heard them so much.
Yeah, so Beinecke was a meat butcher to start off with. For 30 years, he was a German immigrant that became a really well-to-do meat butcher, I guess. I didn't know there was a lot of money in that, but apparently there is. But he wanted
Everyone needs meat.
It's true. Yeah. It's true. You have to get into a company that everybody needs. But he wanted to get into something that was a little more genteel. So that's when he started in with investing into hotels to get a little bit better status.
Oh, yeah,
so,
he was done killing animals.
Yeah. I don't think he was done, but he was just, that was the back burner now.
I'm starting to smell. And they didn't bathe often back then. He probably's like, people leave the room when I come in, so maybe I should switch careers.
So let's give hotels a try. They seem cleaner. Yeah, so they became partners and wanted to go all in for this plaza, but they didn't have enough capital, as is usually the case. So they had to get more people involved. So they got some financing from John Gates, who was well known for going into some high-risk gambling, high-risk stakes type enterprises.
Wait, what was he known for? You called him John Gates?
His nickname was Bet-A-Million Gates because one time he made a bet over which raindrop on the window was going to make it to the sill fastest, and he bet $1 million on which one.
Did he win?
It didn't say. When I was reading about it, it didn't say. So that
win.
Probably means he didn't win.
Ooh.
I feel like they would have.
More like John lost $1 million.
Yeah. I don't know. So I'll have to come back in part 2 and see if I can find the culmination of that story.
These could all be rumors.
Yeah, these are all alleged. Like, these are all just stories. A lot of this, they don't know if it really happened or not. But that's the story of how he got his nickname. But his condition was that they had to hire Frederick Sterry as their hotel manager. He was friends with Frederick Sterry, thought he would do a great job, and so he was like, basically, hire my buddy and I'll give you the money you need. And they were like,
that's
sold.
You know what's weird? That's such a risk. It's someone you don't know. You're like, he can manage. It's like a huge hotel. It's like this is the deal.
Yeah.
He probably wasn't a good man. I don't remember if he was a good manager in the book or not.
I think he was.
Oh,
I think
okay.
he was.
They
Yeah,
got lucky.
He had been managing several hotels by that point.
Oh,
so yeah,
okay.
so he wasn't brand new.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
he
good.
kind of made it, I think, a small name for himself as being like really good with handling the wealthy clients very sensitively. So
Oh.
yeah,
Okay, it's better than like him saying, "Okay, you have to hire my nephew." He
exactly.
just graduated high school. Imagine it's like, here's $1 million and you have to hire him. I don't know if I would take it. I'd be like, ooh, I'm gonna lose that
Ooh,
million real fast.
yeah, but
Okay.
it worked out.
Oh, and they bought it for $3 million. I think they bought the hotel or the land or something.
Yeah, it's
That's a lot in 1902. That's a lot of
so
money.
much money back then.
I mean, that's nothing now, but it was a lot back then. But I think even back then, it was still no, it was a lot.
It was a
I
lot.
wonder what the equivalent is. Like 100 million, maybe.
Probably, yeah, it was a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah, that's still a deal.
for what it came to be worth.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, during this time, oh, there's a lot. Maybe there. I'm jumping ahead, but the hotel was segregated. I mentioned that before.
Of course, yeah.
In all ways,
Yeah.
but men and women in particular was that caused quite some problems later on. But the first guest of the hotel was Alfred Gwynn Vanderbilt. This, it's just, you can't make this stuff up. So he comes in, or what's do you know the specific parts of the story? I might be missing something.
Yeah, so I think he made kind of a big deal about wanting to be the first guest. So among, lots of their crowds are outside and they've all come to see all of this parade of socialites that's going to be signing in to stay there when it opens. But Vanderbilt had to be the first guest. So he strolls in, which should have been this momentous occasion. The first guest, the Vanderbilt, is signing in, but the clerk had wandered away from the desk when they were trying to sign in because they're still trying to get everything ready to go. It's their opening day. There's still a lot to do. So he had wandered away to help someone. And so there was no one there to sign in Alfred except the girl who ran the newsstand had just kind of like sauntered over and was just hanging out at the desk. And so Vanderbilt kind of sarcastically asked kind of like, could I sign in? And she was just like, oh yeah, and just like swivels the guest register around and hands him a pen dipped in ink, and he signs in Mr. and Mrs. Alfred Vanderbilt, which of course his wife was not present. But
I thought they got married.
No,
girl.
she was a young girl, it turns out, like very young. Yeah, he had an affair the next year with the wife of a Cuban diplomat. Vanderbilt was a notorious playboy.
I mean, they all were.
Yeah.
And he lived across the street in the Vanderbilt mansion, so he basically wanted to get away from his parents.
Yeah.
He lived across the street in a mansion that you think you never see your parents in because you have 1 billion rooms, and it was too much. They probably were always searching for him. Alfred!
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah, so his wife was supposed to come, but she had been injured in a car accident the day before, and so she was recovering at a different estate somewhere.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
He's like, this is very
So
convenient.
she couldn't make
I
it.
can bring my girlfriend here and then visit my wife later.
Exactly.
Which I think is what he did.
Yeah, I think so. Because they were divorced a year later. So it was not long for this world anyway.
But that starts the plaza out with a bang.
Yeah.
And it just gets even more ridiculous. Like the hotel guests. I think also some people who stayed there in the early 1900s, there was the Vanderbilt, Guggenheim, when he was I think making the Guggenheim Museum. I don't know. He had a whole story. Him and Frank Lloyd Wright stayed there, and they were designing the Guggenheim, or designing something. These people were always designing. And then Mark Twain was a guest.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah,
one.
I saw that somewhere on an article. It might not be correct because these articles make things up. But I can believe it.
Yeah,
there were a lot of F. Scott Fitzgerald. Him and Zelda stayed there. I mean, they stayed there a lot. That's why, they have a Great Gatsby room, and he writes about the plaza. And then there's a story about him I don't know, jumping in the fountain outside the plaza.
Yeah.
But everyone's like, oh, that might not be true. But I mean, he was a party animal.
Yeah.
So it might be true. And I feel like a lot of people did that.
Yeah. I'm sure more than just him
Yeah.
did that. Yeah. And we're definitely going to talk more about them whenever we get to Prohibition.
Oh, yeah. But a lot of these people started kind of coming in before Prohibition, right?
Yeah. There's so many people. And even just the amount of people that were living in the plaza before, like from the very beginning, they started just renting rooms and staying there for the rest of their lives.
Because it was like the thing, you know, this new hip cool is kind of modern, kind of liberal for the time, even though they are catering to old school money. It was like where you went, you know, you brought your girlfriend and not your wife, but it was still trying to. And I think also the fact that they had a lot of events, like they wanted to be, it wasn't just a hotel. They had, you know, a cafe and a bar and a place you can listen to music. I mean, there was an attraction there, you know, princes and diplomats and everyone was going there.
Yeah, it was like the plaza was a lifestyle
I mean, yeah, just to be a fly on the wall and listen to some of those very important conversations. You know, the Beatles. I mean, that's much later, but
it's this kind of very interesting dynamic they have between all of the rich famous people coming to stay there just as guests, and then like all of these like doddering old women that live there and are like just stationed around the lobby because they've been living there for years.
People just like to hang out there.
Yeah,
I'm one of those people.
I would absolutely if I were in New York.
I go there all the time. Like every time I'm in New York, I'm like, gotta go to the plaza. I had one drink there once and it cost me like a month's rent. But it's not cheap, but it was worth it. I don't know. I was like, you know what? This is worth $50.
Yeah.
I don't pay $50 for rent. That'd be great. But still, it was pretty expensive for what it was.
Yeah.
But they really make you feel special. And I was talking to the bartender about it. He worked there for like 15 years. It was really interesting. Some of those people worked there for a long time. They have a lot of juicy stories. He didn't say anything bad, but I can tell. Like behind the stories, I'm like, you're holding back, and you're gonna let it all out in your memoir one day.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're gonna be like, these girls came to visit me and had a drink, and I almost said this, but I didn't want to get fired.
Well, speaking of the widows, I think that some of them were so interesting. One of them being the princess, whose name we do not know how to pronounce.
Elizabeth, right? Elizabeth Vilma Loth Paragley or Paralee.
Yeah, Parlegee or
Parlegee.
Parlegee.
Parlegee. Yeah,
it's a GH, so you never know.
Yeah, she was a painter, by the way.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
She her title was princess, but her royal bloodline was a little murky. She was from Hungary originally. She'd already been twice divorced by the time she came to the plaza, and her most recent husband had been a minor Russian prince, so that's kind of where she co-opted that title from. But she preferred to be addressed as Your Serene Highness.
She sounded like someone who wanted to be addressed that way. She was a handful. She knew how to take advantage. She's like, oh, I can stay here? And can all my animals stay here too? Like my lions and my tigers and bears?
She brought with her just an entire zoo, basically.
But then that's when the plaza, on the spot, they said, we're going to have a animal-friendly policy. And that's what makes them really cool, especially during that time. And they still have it. Like, they're dog-friendly and everything. But this princess comes along, and she's like, so, are you going to let me stay here with my lion cubs? And they're like, we can say no and lose out. Or we can say yes and make a lot of money.
Yeah.
They didn't know that she would stop paying at a certain point. But
up until then, it was gravy.
Yeah. Because then it turns out a lot of rich people want to bring their animals.
Yeah.
I mean, to this day, I think they should have a limit. Like, they should have been like, you know what? You can't bring a zebra in.
Yeah.
But the fact that they were just like cool with it.
They were cool with it. And she had a lot. Like, she had a dog, a little dog, but she also had guinea pigs, wolves, an ibis, a falcon, several owls. Why do you need more than one owl? Several owls.
Why do you need an ibis?
Because that one sounds cool. Like, that sounds
Okay.
cool as hell. To be like, did you see my ibis?
Where did they stick these animals?
She had like 12-room suite or something. So
okay.
I'm sure they each had their own room. And a family of alligators.
Oh,
That's the one I can't. Our princess has a family of alligators to finish off her menagerie. Which, I mean, at that point, you're bringing dinosaurs into the plaza. So
Yeah.
I just can't get over
What
it.
a life.
Yeah.
What a life for an alligator.
The best lived alligator.
So wait, something happened. She couldn't keep her lion cubs. They were like outgrowing the bathroom.
Yeah, so she didn't even bring the lion cub to start with. After she'd already gotten to the plaza, she went to the circus and saw the lion and bought it because she fell in love with it. But yeah, she was keeping it in her bathtub. But then, of course, they grow.
They grow and eat people.
You believe it or not. And and so they started, the plaza was like, okay, we have to draw a line somewhere.
She obviously was pushing it. She didn't ask permission
Yeah.
for that one. She's like, "Oh, you let me in?"
Yeah.
I said, "Okay, I'm just got a little bit of this and a little bit of that," and before you know it, there's a zoo.
So which is where the lion ended up finally going, was she gave it to the Bronx Zoo.
I bet you. I don't know how long lions live. I think that one's dead, but it must have been like really uncomfortable going to the zoo after that. Be like,
I know, it probably thought, oh my God, what did I do wrong? I was
No room
living
service?
this
Like,
wonderful life,
yeah.
and then you go to the Bronx Zoo.
yeah, that's a rough.
Yeah, but after it died,
From riches to rags.
exactly,
For lions.
yeah. Yeah, she had it buried in a pet cemetery. So she really did love it.
Oh, I wonder if that's in New York.
I think it said Westchester.
Oh my God.
I think is what it said. Don't come at me.
I'm gonna
if I
go
got that
find
one
the
wrong.
cemetery.
I couldn't remember every
Go
detail,
visit
so
the lion's grave.
I know. You probably could. Which I didn't even know pet cemeteries existed back then. That seems like
I mean,
such a modern thing, but obviously not, because I mean, rich people have been coddling their
Yeah.
animals for thousands of years. So
I
obviously,
think
it's
you're
not.
thinking of normal people
Yeah.
who are like the dogs live outside. And
Yeah,
it's
I'm
really
thinking-
true. Like
Thinking of working
rich-
class
yeah.
ancestry here. I don't know.
He's buried in the
what
backyard
royalty does. So yeah, she was one of the crazy guests. Another one of the great 39 widows that I just
the 39 widows, they spanned like from the beginning of the plaza
Yeah.
to like
currently, I think there might still be some,
what?
because I think they add their numbers, like as some die, more come in.
Oh, they must have had like I don't think so, because I think it used to be they had rent controlled
Yeah,
apartments. I don't think that exists anymore.
there's bound to be at least one widow there that's not still living.
Like
I
her
mean, they
grandchild?
probably don't have like a rent controlled apartment anymore, but there's still bound to be some
That'd be
more
interesting.
recent widows that are like, I'll just live at the plaza. I don't want to have to
I
do
wonder.
anything for myself.
I don't know. I think they might all be dead. I think the plaza got rid of them. I think Trump got rid of all of them.
That could be.
He's like, no more widows. Only single young ladies.
But yeah, so I think my favorite one of them was her name was Clarabelle Walsh, and she was
yeah.
originally from Kentucky.
She was a Southern belle.
Yeah, she was a Southern belle. Her claim to fame is that allegedly she invented the cocktail party.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
So she was written up in the Washington Post as giving a cocktail party, and she was, even the Post says she invented this, and now it's become the fashion, but she was the one to.
I bet you there's some other like socialite who invented it, and she's like, bitch.
Yeah.
Clarabelle always
Exactly.
getting all the attention.
Or
I did it first.
one of their servants did it
Yeah.
first,
I don't
and they
think
were
they're servants.
and they were like, "Oh, what are they doing? I'm gonna steal that."
The servants don't have time. They like
No, but they drink.
Yeah, They drink with other servants after work.
Right. That's a cocktail party.
I don't know. I feel like it's definitely a rivalry.
Yeah, and then the
situation.
rich lady just, dresses it up a little bit. And makes it into something that rich people do
drinking
now.
after work? What is work?
We'll just do the drinking part. But yes, so she got married, didn't work out, and she left her husband and moved into the Plaza in 1922, and then shortly after that got divorced. Oh. Yeah, she never left. Exactly.
She haunts the Plaza to this day.
Yes. She claimed to be one of the 39 widows, even though she wasn't, because her husband did die 6 years later, but they were already divorced. So that was kind of a stretch to call herself a widow. But she was old and she lived there, and her husband was dead. So
you know what they really wanted to call them? The 39 spinsters.
Yeah.
And they couldn't. And they're like, widows is more appropriate.
Yes. She also claimed that she had moved in to the Plaza on opening day, despite there having been zero evidence to that fact.
Okay.
Like, not at all. But she kept claiming it. And so the Plaza...
In her mind, she did.
In her mind, she did. The Plaza is so accommodating, though, that they gave her a party in 1957 for her 50-year anniversary of her moving into the Plaza, even though they were well aware.
Okay. The Plaza is just enabling these people at this point. Yes. It's so bad. Stop it.
But, I mean, you gotta keep your long-term tenants happy.
I think they were spending money at the time. They still had their ex-husbands or widows, whatever, widowers.
Yeah,
money.
She was very well.
But eventually, the Plaza learned that the money dried up. And they stopped accommodating them so much.
Yeah, but she was really well known for like drinking nothing but bourbon because she loved her Kentucky whiskey. Yeah, who wasn't?
Her Kentucky whiskey.
Yeah. Okay. So she would only ever drink bourbon whiskey. And one of her most famous party had a kindergarten theme. So everyone who came dressed up like they were children in like sailor boy outfits and like little girl like pinafores, and she wore like a white negligee with like a blue bow tied in her hair. Yeah, it was gross. And like one of the men showed up in like a really fancy pink romper. Yeah. And
I'm picturing this. I think I remember reading about it, and I'm just like, I have no words, but it makes so much sense for those kind of people.
Yeah.
And it's like, you are children.
Yeah, they're so bored. Like they're so bored.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so she had an obstacle course set up that they had to go through the obstacle course to get to the bar. And then once they made it to the bar, which I'm sure got funnier and funnier the drunker they got.
Yeah.
I'm surprised someone didn't die by the end of it. Once they got to the bar, they were served their drink, whatever, martini, Sazerac of their choice in a baby bottle. Because, what kindergartner do you know that doesn't still use a baby bottle?
I mean, after a long, hard day of playing with the blocks and the coloring books,
learning how to read.
Yeah, you need a nap and a whiskey. That's really weird. And actually, she's not only the first person to invent the cocktail party, but a fetish party.
Yeah, a fetish party.
That sounds
That's what that is.
Yeah. Oh my God.
There was some swinging happening afterwards, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So that's what I was imagining. I was like, how many people also came in diapers and just didn't,
They all knew what they were there for.
They all knew what they were there for. So
that's weird. I'm upset that, people didn't have cameras back then. Or they didn't have they had cameras, but it was like a big to-do.
Yeah.
You had to hire.
Right. You had to sit and
there's a light bulb that went out.
It's a whole thing.
Like it's a whole, yeah. And I don't think she wanted anyone recording that. Although, maybe. People are weird. Maybe those kink parties, I bet you there's some valuable old film reels of what went down in the hotel. I'm getting off topic here, but there are weird things out there that will, they probably are worth a lot of money. We should try to find them.
Yeah.
Somebody. Maybe it's in the vault in
whatever
the Plaza.
Private collection has them. Yeah. You should really
there
bring
are
those out.
like well-known people who try to search for old vintage pornos about with old
there are.
celebrities like Cary Grant and all that stuff. Apparently they exist, but I don't. There's no proof of it, but I have a feeling that this might exist.
Yeah.
You know, but the Plaza buried it.
Oh yeah.
They're like, we didn't do that. Yeah, it gets weird. The Plaza lets a lot. They allowed a lot of things to happen, and they were very accommodating to people that maybe they shouldn't have been so accommodating to. But that's what makes them special. Yeah. But when you think about the Plaza and why it's lasted this long, I think the year it opened was in 1907, and then something I just found out. During this time, there was something called the Panic of 1907. So the economy went through a recession, and a lot of banks across the country, I think it was like a wave of panic. And I don't know, I didn't read too much into it, but apparently the Plaza wasn't so affected by it, but a lot of banks went bankrupt. And I think the fact that it started and thrived during like a really crazy time just it just says everything you need to know about the Plaza. Like, it will just adapt.
Yeah.
That's what is really cool. It just goes with it. It's not like this is how we do it and that's it. They're like, okay, we can't do this, we'll just do something else. But they still don't lose their class. It's like very interesting.
Yeah.
I admire them. More people should be like the Plaza.
Very much. Maybe not like the Plaza's like very, very start though. I keep forgetting I want to mention this, but there was a lot of violence like at the start when the second Plaza, I should say, was being built, not the first one.
With the union workers?
Yeah, with the union workers. So it's just fascinating how the justice system could work back then. So
it wasn't a justice system.
No.
It was a give me some money and make it go away system.
Exactly. So it's the same as now. So one day there were a few different retired police officers who had been hired as kind of security on the site because the union workers were feuding with the non-union workers. Basically, the union workers were in the middle of negotiations to get a raise for what they were doing, and in the meantime the Plaza just hired some non-union workers to get this other faster work done cheaper. The union workers didn't care for it, so as they would finish one floor and move up to the next floor, the union workers would be working a level above the non-union workers, and they would just like casually drop some like molten hot metal down near where the non-union workers happened to be working. So that's why these officers needed to be hired to try to keep the peace, because it was getting worse and worse. And so one day, Michael Butler, one of them, was just on his rounds. He turned his back to the union ironworkers and was hit in the head with an iron bolt. And then about 10 workers just jumped him, start beating him. They beat him until he was unconscious, and then just threw his body through a hole in the unfinished floor. And he fell 2 stories and just was down there. He lived.
Wow.
He was unconscious for a while. A fellow guard tried to come over to help, which the floor is not done, so they're having to balance on the iron beams and stuff. So obviously the security guard's not so great at that. The iron workers have been doing it forever, so they're great at it. So they're a little bit off balance, and so he's trying to get over there to help, and of course he gets beaten.
Oh my
as well.
God.
Beaten with tools, left unconscious and bleeding. A third officer tries to come over. He gets beaten with wrenches and passes out. So then the workers just left the 3 men where they were and returned to work. And one of them woke up and, without being seen, managed to slip down one of the poles and get to the ground floor and call for the police. And so the police come and are trying to get up there, and the workers had booby-trapped the ladders.
Oh my God.
The police couldn't even get up there. It was a whole situation. They finally were able to get up there. I think they finally had to draw their weapons and were like, okay, we're going to shoot you, basically.
These are all the union workers.
Yeah, these are all the union workers.
Wow.
Because that's how heated things had gotten. So,
Yikes.
yeah. So a few days later, 7 of the ironworkers were brought to trial for the first guard, Michael Butler, for his incident. And 50 of their co-workers were called as witnesses, and they all testified that they didn't see anything, they didn't hear anything.
They're a team.
Yeah. And so the jury came back and ruled that Butler had fallen by accident, and they were all acquitted.
Oh my God. Oh, come on.
Yeah. And then, of course, the injuries that the other 2 officers experienced were never explained. Like, they just were like, oh, forget about those. Yeah.
He bumped his head.
Yeah. So just the beginning of the plaza, like from before it's even built, is just drama.
Yeah, this place is drama all day, every day. That's crazy. I forgot the details of that story, and hearing you say it again, that's so intense.
Yeah.
I would be terrified as a non-union worker to work alongside union workers and basically, I think there's a word for it, scabbing, right? Is that the right word? Where like you're doing the job of you're
That sounds right,
interfering
sure.
with the, I don't know if that's right.
I don't know if that's right.
I'm gonna
but
Google
sounds
it.
good.
I'm gonna Google it, but you're interfering with like the whole thing,
with the whole system.
and it's like
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard because like people need work, and like but at the same time the unions are fighting. But they're motherfuckers. That was like really
Yeah.
intense. Oh my God, why do you gotta do that? But whoa. Oh my God. I'm scared of union workers.
Just gotta join the union, and then you'll be protected.
Oh yeah. It is okay, I was right. They also call it a strike breaker. And a strike breaker, sometimes called a scab, blackleg, or knobstick, those aren't nice names, is a person who works despite an ongoing strike. Yeah. That's what I thought. I wouldn't want to do that.
No.
You're like really asking for that's a hard position to be in. Man, the drama. But they did manage to finish the plaza.
Yes, they did. In case you were wondering, with bated breath.
They did negotiate, right?
Yes.
They won.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
did.
they
They
had to.
came to an agreement. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't want to die.
Yeah. The plaza, the company that was building the plaza wanted to give them $450. They wanted $5, and they came to an agreement at $480. So they met right there in the middle.
Wow. $4.80 an hour, or a day, or a week?
Probably
A week.
a week.
Yeah.
I'm not positive, but probably
An
week.
hour,
Yeah.
they'd be loaded.
Yeah, so it was definitely a week.
Yeah. Whoa. That's like intense. I would also fight for something if I was getting so little. I'm just thinking about it. It's freaking me out right now.
No, you're safe.
But in general, when they were building the plaza, they like imported all this stuff from Europe. I mean, there was so much work involved. So I feel like those union workers probably did an insane amount of work, and they deserved the $480.
Yeah,
They probably
really
deserved the
$5.
$5. Yeah. But like, the designer of the hotel, his name was Janeway Hardenberg. Is that a girl or a guy?
Henry Janeway Hardenberg.
Oh, I missed his first name. He did a really good job. I think a lot of people also, there was an extension of the plaza, and there were a couple other designers well known. They had rooms like designed specifically for people. I just read Christian Dior had a room designed for him. Yeah.
Wow.
I know. And then someone took over that room. I forgot. I'm blanking. But it's an interesting fact.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, and Hardenberg also was the architect previously for the Waldorf Astoria. So they kind of took a page from the Waldorf's book. But I remember reading that there was like an architectural kind of critic basically that says that that Hardenberg really reached his masterpiece with the plaza, that even the Waldorf couldn't compare to what he managed to do with the plaza.
True. It's still like beautiful. I mean, there are other hotels that are really nice. I mean, there's so much now so much history and so many things that have been developed since then. But the plaza to this day, like the details, it's so nice. You can tell there was so much thought put into everything, and it was like high quality stuff. And even there, I think it's the Edwardian room, or there's a room or an oak room, I forgot what it was, but they basically, like, a lot of it had real like rare pieces of something, and they actually made to extend it, they like found fake ones, but they did such a good job, no one can tell. I forgot what part of the room, no one can tell. It's like the upper part. And they also had murals painted by a famous American artist in the oak room.
Yeah.
That is supposedly the inspiration from Walt Disney for Walt Disney's Disney, like, Cinderella castle, like those old European castles in the paintings. And apparently, of course, Walt Disney went in there and saw. So he's like, yeah, I would like a woman in that house. I don't know what he was thinking. He's like, I like the idea of someone cleaning my space because I'm in a hotel, and that looks like a castle. Cinderella. Now, I know Cinderella has like a whole folk tale behind it, but I feel like he embellished the cleaning lady and castle part. But what was that painter?
Everett Chin.
Everett Chin, right? I mean, those murals are so valuable. If I was a thief, I would just go right to the oak room and be like, let me take that. Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. We're not.
I don't think they could get away with that.
Yeah.
But I think it would be very difficult. I don't know if I don't think you can just rip off the wall. But it's pretty cool that it's still there. And
out of all of the rooms, that one is still there, because
a lot of the rooms
of them have changed, come and gone, been replaced with other things. I definitely wish a few of them still existed.
Like the Persian room?
Yes. I want to see a show there.
I mean, I think there's the plaza has changed so much, but I wish they would go back to the Persian room. Was a room in the lobby. It's where the Rose Room is now, and it's just a bar now. I don't even think it's open. The last time I was there, it wasn't open. And the Persian room it was, again, painting and murals of like Persian art, and it was a nightclub, and all these famous people performed there. I wrote down a list. Like Bob Hope, Duke Ellington, Billie Holiday, Liza Minnelli, Eartha Kitt, Ethel Merman, Lena Horne, Miles Davis, and I'm sure like Frank Sinatra, and like literally everyone
Hildegard was a big one there.
Oh yes, Hildegard.
Yeah.
Hildegard. That was me and my cousin when we went in. We were talking about Hildegard. She was really big back in the day. She was a singer, right?
Yes.
I forgot about that. I love her name, Hildegard.
I know, it's great.
But I can imagine like every night, it's like, oh, who's playing at the Persian room? Like, that would have been fun.
That would have been great.
Because it was big, but it's intimate. So, and you have these huge acts. It's probably not easy to get a ticket there.
Yeah, I would imagine not.
Yeah,
I imagine they would sell out.
But still, like, if you had money, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, that was the place to be.
Yeah, imagine like Beyonce performing, and you're like, I'm going to see Beyonce.
It's no big deal.
In basically a dining room.
She's my dinner entertainment.
Yeah.
What?
I think maybe they couldn't make it a thing because eventually the celebrities are like, no more. This is too pathetic.
Well, so I think that brings us up to kind of the Prohibition era for the plaza.
Yeah, but when was the Persian room was
That's
built?
not till the Depression.
Oh, okay. That comes after.
Oh,
yeah. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I didn't mean to skip ahead.
Oh no, we're skippers. We're mentioning architecture. That's a big part of the architecture.
Yeah.
We're giving little teasers for things to come.
Yeah, because the Persian room lasts a pretty long time.
Yeah.
Right? And then it turns into Actually, before continue. I'll stop talking.
So, Prohibition, obviously one of my favorite times past because it's just so fascinating. But it was a little rough for the Plaza during Prohibition because suddenly one of their major sources of income, alcohol, is no longer legal to be sold on the premises. So they have to start coming up with some other ways to make up that income.
Yeah. And I think that's when they changed. This was before the Persian Room, and they changed the lobby into an automobile? Or is that during the Depression?
That might be during the Depression,
okay.
yeah. So many changes. It's hard to keep up.
That lobby was a hair salon or a barbershop.
Yeah.
Not even a hair salon, a barbershop. Oh, because men and women, like women weren't allowed in anywhere. They can only go to their rooms. And there was a barbershop, an automobile showroom, and some other thing.
Some
and
brokers' offices,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
And then I think the Oak Room was, they literally made one of these like beautiful bars. It's just like the back room.
Yeah.
As a
Like
storage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's tough if you can't serve alcohol.
Yeah.
Like what are people gonna do?
Yeah, and with different times, not having enough guests in the hotel, like you don't need all of this space, so use it for something else. But yeah, so of course they started, I think, having tea parties a lot instead.
Oh, they had these fake tea parties.
Yeah.
Everyone knew the tea party meant you get alcohol on the down low.
Yeah, bring your flask, BYOB.
I think they were selling it also, right? They were selling, like, if you said the right thing to the waiter.
the waiter would. Yeah, the hotel itself officially was.
Yeah.
It was not. But if you said the right thing to the waiter.
Yeah, you said, I want the Norwegian tea or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Like, they're like, we have that.
You're in luck.
You just have to pay extra.
Yeah, so of course, lots of the Jazz Age celebrities are going to be hanging around there. F. Scott Fitzgerald loved the Plaza. Even before he was famous, he was staying there. He was living in this tiny little drab Bronx apartment, but he would spend as much time as he could at the Plaza.
Yeah, so would I.
Yeah.
I don't know, living in the Bronx at the time, I'd be like, see ya.
Gotta get out.
Gotta go to the fountain at the Plaza.
Exactly. So yeah, he loved the Grill Bar, I believe. He loved the Rose Room. Yeah, I remember reading that he would spend Saturdays at the Rose Room. But yeah, and so of course the Plaza is going to show up in Fitzgerald's work. It becomes kind of this shorthand for him to symbolize the wealth, and not just the wealth, but how frivolous that lifestyle could be. So I think the Plaza shows up in The Great Gatsby. It also shows up, I want to say, This Side of Paradise. I can't remember for sure.
Well, something like the Plaza.
Yeah.
It represents a lot.
Yeah.
And
So-
they dedicated a room. The room he stayed in, I don't know if it exists anymore, but today, because they filmed the room, they filmed The Great Gatsby by Baz Luhrmann in the Plaza. They now have a room, The Great Gatsby room.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. That's very expensive.
Yeah. So I think it's really interesting that so up to this point, This Side of Paradise comes out in 1920. So Fitzgerald is already staying at the Plaza as much as he can. At this point, the Plaza is kind of already an institution, and it's only 13 years old. I mean, it really just came onto the scene and was it. It was the big deal and stayed that way. So I think that is just really fascinating that it happened so early on in its journey, I guess.
Yeah, and I think also why people loved the Plaza throughout history is because it was a place where things got, change happened. Like even with the unions, like a lot of places they probably wouldn't negotiate, or they never, I just feel like, especially back then, they just did not care about people. And the fact that the Plaza was willing to handle the unions and then also talk about segregation, like there was a lot of things that came up throughout the Plaza's history that basically they changed, and it was like the ground in which people would challenge the status quo. Yeah. And even there's a famous woman, is she the princess that she's sitting in what is now the parlor room, or the tea room. Oh my God, I'm forgetting the name. It's the big one. It's the big name. It's the big
The Oak Room?
not the Oak Room. It's like when you
one.
go straight
The
in.
Palm.
The Palm Court. Yes, that's it. The Palm Court. Struggling there. So this woman, I think it was the princess, because it was a European princess. She goes into the Palm Court, and this was especially like the early 1900s, and she starts smoking a cigarette.
Oh, yeah.
And this act is very controversial. Women shouldn't be smoking. They shouldn't be smoking in public, and especially not in a restaurant for the same reasons today, but back then. And people were appalled. And instead of kicking her out, I think they tried, but they accommodate. They just put up a little, like curtain. Like they put like a little fence around her to block her. They're like, you know what? We'll make sure no one sees you so they don't get offended, but you can still smoke. And that, for that time, says a lot about the Plaza. They're like, you know what? We'll work with the change that's happening here.
Yeah, I think the only story I read where they did actually ask someone to leave was because a woman didn't wear stockings underneath her dress. And
I bet you that manager got fired.
Probably. Yeah. Like he came over and asked her to leave, and she was like, "Sir, it's being done." And he said, "Not here. This is the Plaza." So he probably got fired.
I feel like there was a couple of people like that, but then there was that other side where they were
many more stories of them actually
must have been
being
the first,
flexible.
It must have been like the first day for the guy, and the first day there, because there was a lot of stories where the managers like thought they could get away, and everyone's like, no, that's not how things are done. And enough widows, I should say, not widowers, come in and basically are like, you're not telling me what to do. I'm gonna sit here and have my lunch in middle of the lobby, take out my folding chair, smoke a cigarette, play Yahtzee or whatever they played back in the day. I don't know. And I don't even know if that was invented.
Pinochle?
Like, gin.
Yeah.
Drink a gin, play gin. And there's nothing you can do. And they would just have to work around these people. So, this guy must have been new.
Yeah.
He didn't last very long.
Absolutely.
But, okay, so what are we up to?
So we're still in Prohibition. I think so we mentioned before that Harry S. Black was one of the co-founders of the Plaza. During this time, he actually got into a little bit of legal trouble. He liked to go to Florida to vacation, as what New Yorker doesn't.
Yes. Okay. I remember this.
And so he traveled there by train car, and then would stay in a hotel. And so his train car was being moved for whatever reason at around midnight. That raised some flags, and so a security person called it in and called the Prohibition police, basically, and they came and raided his train car, and it was just full of hooch. So much alcohol. $8,000 worth in 1921.
So the hotel was selling the alcohol. That's what I thought.
So imagine how much, I don't know how much $8,000 in 1921 would be worth now, but that's a lot.
Like $20,000?
To me, $8,000 worth of alcohol is a lot for one person to have personally in their little train car. Even
that's a lot.
now,
that is a lot.
So back then,
I mean, he was providing for like probably a hotel for a year. Of alcohol.
I assume. I'm hoping it was for the Plaza and not just his personal
No,
stock.
It was for the Plaza. I think he was definitely.
I would like the story so much more if it was just his own personal alcohol.
I mean, I'm sure but then there would have been stories of him having drinking problems.
That's true.
Yeah.
So
him streaking in the Plaza because he's drunk.
Right. So of course they haul him to court. He insisted he was not guilty. He says he told his porter to buy grapefruit, and the man misheard and bought liquor instead.
Oh my God.
And
what a fuck up.
Like, grapefruit. Is there even any kind of liqueur or alcohol that sounds like the word grapefruit?
No, that is like the weakest
so weird
excuse I've ever heard.
So weird. Yeah. So, I don't know. But stroke of genius, he insisted that the jury try what was found in his train car. And so after repeatedly trying many rounds, the jury found him not guilty. They said, yeah.
He got the jury drunk.
Yeah, he got the jury drunk. And they allowed it.
Yeah, because they all want hooch. And
Yeah,
imagine
'cause
at that
they
time,
yeah.
free
alcohol. And
okay.
you're being allowed to
Can
do
we
it by
make a deal
judge?
if I let you keep this you giving me, for the
know.
next couple of years? Probably.
Yeah, so not guilty.
Yeah, not guilty, but corrupt.
Yeah, so like they said, justice system back then.
Yeah. That's like
so
someone getting caught with a bunch of weed and it's like, wait. Before you judge me, just try
smoke
it.
a little.
Just smoke it. Let's all just gather
and
in
you
this
tell me if
room.
this is weed.
Yeah, I'll put on some music. Yeah, tell me how effective the weed is, and before you know it, none of them show up to court.
Not guilty. Yeah, mistrial.
Yeah. I love that happened. I love how that's how you knew people, that the whole alcohol prohibition was sewn up about the people. No one was like, oh, if you drink alcohol, you're a bad person. It was like that one guy, he's like, you're bad. And everyone's like, okay, you got me.
Yeah. So now we're moving on into the end of the Jazz Age. By August 1929, however, the Plaza was considered the third most valuable hotel in New York. And and it was valued at this time at $13.8 million, which is about $200 million today.
That's actually crazy. Okay.
Yeah.
Go on, because now I'm doing all the math in my head about the other
about
values.
the future. Yeah. And it was doing the best business in its history. So of course, not to foreshadow, but to foreshadow August 1929. Like, we're getting into a dun 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 time period here. So we're only a couple of months away from October, from the crash. So moving into the crash and the depression. Black really
well, Black also was a hustler. He was always making like bets and well, he wasn't, John bet $1 million Gates, but he was risky and he owed a lot of money, and he but you have to be in order to make the Plaza and to make all these things happen, but it takes a toll on you.
It does. And he started making some not the most sound financial decisions. Everybody was just so gung-ho that the stock market couldn't fail. They was just going to keep going up and up and up.
Which is so weird, because in 1907, the panic of 1907, and also
that long ago.
You already had a world war.
Yeah.
And you had to ration. Well, did we have to? We probably. I feel like they just rationed in general. Before 1950, everyone just lived on rations. There was no war. They're like, you only get one stick of butter for the year. But yeah, like, you already knew that things are not certain. Yeah. So I guess because they weren't affected in 1907, so they probably were like, oh, we're fine. We're the Plaza.
Yeah, that's true.
They got too cocky.
But yeah, so he had stopped just getting loans from banks. At this point, he's decided that that's old-fashioned, don't need to do that anymore. Now he's just selling stock and using the money he raises from that stock to build the structure. So people are buying stock for something that doesn't actually exist yet, which I don't know how that doesn't ring any alarm bells to them back then.
I think they're all worried about
they were just so overly confident. But of course, October hits, the crash hits, and things don't go so well for Black.
No. And
anyone else.
Or anyone else. So the Plaza does get very much affected by the crash. And Harry S. Black tries his first attempt at suicide.
Yes. In October, like, actually his first suicide attempt came before the big crash.
He knew what was coming.
Yeah, he knew it was coming.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
I feel like the rich guys knew.
Yeah.
Like the ones on top.
They were like, ooh,
fuck, yeah.
Crap. What do we do? Yeah. So
were there a lot of suicides at that time?
They claim that there were. They always say that there was like a suicide a day, but there actually weren't. I think they recorded like 13 tops over that whole period. So it really wasn't that bad.
I don't think it was a suicide a day. I think what was weird is probably seeing people like Harry S. Black commit suicide. Yeah. That's what was scary. So even if there was like 5 of those, that's a big red flag. And I think the rest of us are like, fuck, I can't die. I have kids. And,
Yeah, I've got responsibilities.
Yeah. And maybe because they were used to it too. If you were poor, something my mom always said, it's like when you're so poor, really the economy doesn't affect you that much.
Exactly.
You're like, I'm used to this.
That's one of my favorite lines in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. They're like, we're old poor. They're what you call new poor. Like,
they're not used. It's
they're
really
not used
true.
to it.
It's like when I forgot who. I don't know if this was in school, but someone's like, who do you have a piece of bread? Who do you give the bigger piece to? The man who's been living on the streets for a year, or the guy who just went on the street, like got on the street and he was, poor and all the time. It's like, you give it to the man who used to be rich. He's not used to it. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of true.
It's kind of
like,
true.
You gotta ease him into this life a little bit. Slowly lessen his piece of bread every day.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Ration his bread.
Black was not down for the rationing to come. He was over it. So
Well, it wasn't just that. He was in huge financial trouble.
just
Yeah.
completely.
And
his company collapses basically.
And I don't know. I know he was warned about it though by some people. They were like, "Don't do that," and he persisted.
Yeah.
And I think, he was terrified of going bankrupt, and I guess being poor. But I think it's more than that. There has to be ego involved.
Oh yeah.
I think
He had never lost up to this point.
That's
he
the
had
thing.
never
the ego.
lost.
Yeah, that's why it hit them so hard, because this is who they were. And poor people, they were like, I'm poor. Like, this isn't who I am. This is what I'm dealing with. I don't know. I would love to interview people who survived the 1920 crash, but I think they're all dead.
Yeah.
But like, it makes sense that a lot of them took it way harder.
Yeah.
Than other people.
Yeah.
I
Than
just
we
can
would,
imagine.
Basically.
Well, technically, my grandmother was born around that time, but I think she was too young to even remember.
Yeah, because my grandfather wasn't born until 1929. So.
Yeah, 1927, 1929.
Yeah.
I mean, both my grandmothers are dead now.
Yeah,
but
ditto. So I couldn't ask him
even
anyway,
when she was
definitely doesn't
alive,
remember it.
I mean, I knew she struggled with some things. She wasn't wealthy. She lived, in a poor neighborhood and didn't have much. But I think by the time she had memories,
Yeah.
she was used to it.
But yeah, if you're like a child in the Depression, then you just grow up like that. That's just how it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. So he attempts suicide for the first time in his bathtub.
Wait, who found him? His butler?
His butler, yeah. So his
Thank
butler
God for
finds
butlers.
him. Right. Well, that's not what Black was like. No, butler.
I know.
Couldn't you slack off for once?
Yeah. But I mean, I wish I had a butler. I don't want to kill myself, but if I had a butler, I would want him to save me if I was like drowning in my own tub or just, you know, in general.
Absolutely, yes.
A lot of cases, the butler finds the unfortunate, or the housekeeper, like Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah. So, but of course they knew what he had done, so they didn't want there to be a big scandal. So instead of calling the police, the butler calls the gas company, because the gas company has a pulmonary crew with a breathing apparatus. And so they bring over their breathing apparatus and give him CPR and then try to put him on this breathing apparatus. And finally they eventually, like, the hotel doctor gets involved, and I think they finally do call the police. And by that time, they've tried to get their story straight, and the hotel doctor says that he fainted due to indigestion brought about by the hot water from the bathtub.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Their excuses were not
so
great back then.
No.
Powerful people are just used to, I guess, getting whatever they want.
I think so, especially men.
Yeah, they're like, I don't need to try with my excuse.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say the first thing that pops into my head.
Yeah.
Grapefruit.
And
bathtub indigestion.
Yeah. Oh, man, I can't take a bath otherwise. I'm all gassy. But also, something interesting about that breathing apparatus was that I don't know if it was in that story, but the fact that the butler knew about it, and it's only accessible to like super wealthy people.
Yeah.
And that's actually a really smart butler for the time. But how long did that take? I can't imagine anything going that fast.
They worked on him for 9 hours before they finally
Was he not breathing?
Well, I guess not.
It was kind of a miracle. How
Yeah,
did-
I know. But so after 9 hours, they said he was conscious and like through the worst of it, I guess. But he was never the same.
He was never the same.
Yeah.
And then he did end up killing himself.
Yeah. A few back. I would say like 8 months later, 8 or 9 months later. Yeah, he managed.
He should have been on suicide watch.
Yeah, he really
Yeah.
should have. Yeah, he woke up in the morning and he didn't come down after like 11 a.m. They were like, okay, we gotta go check.
Well, how did he do it this time?
He shot himself in the right temple, I believe, but he didn't die immediately. It took him all day to die.
Wow.
Yeah.
What?
But I guess he was unconscious and they could tell. Like in the book, she just says like they could tell like he wasn't gonna make it. So I guess they didn't bother to call the doctor or something.
Oh my
They
God.
just
They're like, he really
Yeah.
wanted to
he
die.
So by the evening he
Oh
died.
my God.
But-
I mean, this is not a light topic, but just he was not good at this.
He's not good at this.
Yeah. I
This is when you need to have a pact with your butler that says if I can't get it done
what
myself,
happened to good old poison?
you kill me.
Also,
Yeah.
I feel like during that time, everything killed you. How was he alive? How does anyone survive past the
true.
age of 5?
Yeah, because he was in his 60s, so he's already doing pretty well for survival rates.
Wow. I feel like there are, or there were, I should say, because I don't know, none of them are still alive, but there were these men, like these historical men, like from, Rockefeller. They lived till
Yeah.
in their 90s. What did they drink? Maybe it was all that.
That's just what money, the kind of
They
healthcare
drank
money
money?
gets you.
That's the secret
That's
to
the secret.
longevity.
They
Money.
just blended it
You
right
think
up.
they just drank the oil that they found in the ground that made them rich? They're like,
So
I think they sold their soul to the devil.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah.
pact with the devil for
Yeah.
sure, for sure. So Black exits stage left. Actually, and only a couple of years later, his partner Beinecke dies of natural causes. In
Stress.
his yeah, but he dies in his suite at the Plaza. And then a year
I
later,
didn't know that either.
yeah, and then a year later, the Plaza's first manager, Frederick Sterry, also dies. So,
What did he die of?
um,
Syphilis. I'm kidding.
I think age. I think it would have said if it was something interesting.
No, maybe they covered up
So-
that one pretty well.
Yeah. So yeah, we're in the throes of the Depression. All of the starting figures for the Plaza are gone. I mean the Plaza itself is starting to look a little worse for wear. They don't have any money to keep it, to maintain it. So
that's when they close a couple of rooms.
Yeah.
They use the oak room for storage. They called it the back room. Things went into disrepair. They couldn't refurnish anything.
yeah, the Pulitzer fountain was crumbling. Water had stopped even coming out of the spigots. And this sad, maybe most telling of all, Pomona, the goddess of plenty, who is in front of the Plaza, her pedestal is cracked and chipped and just looks, she just looks toe up.
And they couldn't even pay their staff, right?
Yeah, the staff had serious delays in getting paid.
Man.
Yeah, the hotel rates dropped. Hotel rates across the board, across the country, dropped 30% between 1929 and 1933.
I'm shocked they didn't drop 100%.
I know, right?
was
Yeah, because
still there.
like they said that the hotels were down to a 51% occupancy rate, which in my mind for the Depression, that's pretty good.
Yeah. But I guess,
But compared to what they were,
and who knows how much, I think they dropped the rates,
yeah,
and whoever was staying there, it was like really cheap. It was
Yeah.
probably not even worth it for them.
right.
It's probably more of a burden to keep them on, like the guests,
Yeah.
using up all their
yeah,
resources.
because then they need staff for the guests. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the hotels kind of made it worse for themselves because they're trying to compete with each other. So they would slash prices, and then the next one would slash their prices, and they just kept going back and forth until, you just weren't paying anything for a hotel room.
So, the hotel struggled a lot.
Yeah, in fact, like by 1932, it said 81% of the nation's hotels had filed for bankruptcy. But not the Plaza.
Yeah, not yet.
Not yet. The Plaza made it through the Depression without bankruptcy.
Didn't make it through the Trump
Didn't
era.
make it through Trump.
Trump is going to come up a lot in here, and we're going to make fun of him a lot.
A lot. So just be ready for it.
This is no hate. Like, this is not even political.
No, this is not political hate whatsoever.
No, this is
purely
strictly
financial.
I am thinking of Trump strictly on just the Plaza and like the old school Trump and Home Alone and how it's just
Exactly.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is like pre-2001 Trump.
Yeah. Before he became really annoying.
Yeah.
Before he became a problem, I should
Yeah,
say.
exactly. This is pre-openly problematic Trump.
He was just like the annoying real estate guy that you can make
Yeah.
fun of, and you were like okay with celebrities taking pictures with him. And now everyone's like, fuck Trump.
Yeah. So, so we're just purely that side of Trump.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a little rough but the one great thing that did happen during the Depression is the repeal of prohibition, because now, thank God, you can finally openly serve alcohol and charge for it again.
Yeah, openly. That's
Openly.
the
Exactly,
key word.
openly.
Everyone's like, whew.
Woo, yeah, that was so rough. Ooh.
Well, that was, you know what, actually, that was, I have a little fact about Prohibition, because I worked at a brewery, and during Prohibition, the breweries would secretly sell beer. They would pretend like they were like, oh, we had soft drinks and the beer's less than 1%, but then they really, but the day Prohibition ended, what's her name? Jean Harlow, the Marilyn Monroe of the 1920s, went into the street in LA, went to the brewery that actually was in downtown Los Angeles called East Side Brewery, I don't know, something like that, and she all of a sudden magically appeared with a bunch of beer cans and was like, woohoo, Prohibition in the streets, everyone's taking pictures, everyone's like, this is great. How did you get all this alcohol so fast? There's like, she's in the newspaper, like no one's going after them, giving them fines, like, oh, I think everyone was just so relieved.
Yeah, they were just so happy it was over. They're like, look, whatever.
Special
Statute
occasion.
of limitations.
Yeah. I think
Cut it
really
down.
no one gave a shit at that point.
Yeah. So, but because Prohibition is over, now finally we can open the Persian Room, sell alcohol, have live music and dinner and all the fun.
Live life.
Open again.
Yeah.
So, which you would think that opening something like the Persian Room wouldn't make a lot of sense during the Depression, because who's going out to dinner and who has the money for that? But everything was just so depressing, obviously, that people needed an escape. So they spent that money.
That during recessions and depressions, that the things people spend money on, it's like movies, it's actually self-care, and that makes sense, because like, although you think it's expensive, what people aren't spending money on is cars, homes, travel. So maybe they were smart for doing that.
So they got a little pocket money and they
and
go
I'm
out to
sure
dinner.
some people went there and got like a little water, a little seltzer, and a cracker, and the Plaza was like, okay, we'll let you stay.
You can stay, yeah. So I think like you could get a gin, I think, for 55 cents, or you could get like the full dinner, drinks, and a show for $3.
Oh my God, what a steal.
What a steal.
I think you can still get that in Thailand.
Absolutely. So we've got the Persian Room here, which that we mentioned earlier. It was actually designed by Joseph Urban, who is famous for designing a lot of the sets for the Ziegfeld Follies, which was a very popular Broadway revue in the 20s and 30s. So of course it's full of red curtains, red carpets, Persian blue accents, and then the wall murals that we were discussing earlier, separate from the Oak Room wall murals. These are different ones.
Yeah. Imagine I wonder, those would have been valuable if they kept them.
Yeah, I would think so.
Do you think the Plaza has a secret storeroom?
Like the Vatican, but for the Plaza?
Yes. I didn't even
the
know
Plaza
about that.
Vault.
Oh my God, I don't want to know what's in the Vatican store, but I think the Plaza has to have that.
They've got to.
That
Surely.
Wow, what I would give to go into that room. Oh my God.
Yeah, because surely they wouldn't get rid of that
Yeah,
stuff.
they can't. That's like history.
Yeah. I hope so. I hope they still have those
I know.
things.
We should email them. I feel like they would be open to answering our emails because they're the Plaza and they're so nice.
They might. You never
Yeah.
know. It doesn't hurt
Unless
to try.
there's skeletons in there. Unless there's Harry S. Black in there.
No, I believe he was buried next to his nephew.
That we know of.
Specifically. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's true.
All right, who else
I'm
do we
just
know?
saying,
in there?
oh.
Someone's in there.
Ooh.
I'm not going to say. I don't want to give away the next segment of our podcast.
Yes. So, so the Persian Room definitely picks up the income a little bit for the Plaza. They're starting to do better. Towards the end of the 30s, we're starting to come out of the Depression a little bit anyway. So things are picking up a little bit. The ballroom actually at this time, all during the Depression, still hosted glamorous parties for all of the wealthy women. Difference being they just turned them into charity events. So I guess here's the beginning of your gala season. So they, instead of just having a party for no reason, they would have a charity event for people suffering.
This is where white guilt
Yes.
gets introduced. And we're happy about it.
And rich guilt, yeah.
And rich, yeah. Well, who was rich at the
Yeah.
time?
Yeah, there were still a few wealthy people.
No, I'm saying white people.
Oh, white people.
Yeah.
Yeah. True that. Absolutely.
They were allowed into the plaza.
Right.
Men, mostly.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, actually the women were
the women
ones.
were the ones,
Oh,
in the ballroom.
That's true.
When they were allowed in there.
Yeah, when they were allowed in there.
After the hours of whatever.
So there was still segregation. Women couldn't go into the Oak Room. They couldn't have lunch in the, right? What was it?
in the palm court.
They were there only between like 1 and 2 o'clock. I don't know, on the weekends, and then during the week it was only men.
It's like an LA coffee shop. It's only
Yeah.
open on Sundays and Wednesdays from 1:15
Yeah.
to 3:30.
Yeah, and you have to have a chaperone.
Exactly. But things are getting better for the hotel workers because they are finally able to unionize in 1938. They've been trying for decades at this point to unionize. It kept falling through, finally unionize. They managed to get their minimum weekly wages at $9 for waiters, $7.50 for waitresses. Of course, can't have equal pay. And $18 for telephone operators.
That's crazy.
So that's what you wanted to be.
But those were all women, most of them.
That's what I'm thinking. At least I know it was in the 50s.
Well, according to Mad Men,
yeah,
that was all.
And and like I know my great grandmother.
Yeah,
so, but that was in like I think the 40s.
You know why?
Yeah, 40s and 50s.
You know why it was all women?
Because we can process and communicate much faster.
And we're good gossip listeners.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were almost there. It's like, we know how to eavesdrop. The men would just be like, what'd you say?
Wait, what? Was this call finished? Yeah. But these wages were just a starting point. Over the next 9 years, they actually, hourly average earnings for hotel workers would more than double. So things are looking up for the staff.
I'm happy for the staff.
Me too.
Yeah, the plaza did well. Oh, and I want to mention something about some of our celebrity guests here. So Cecil Beaton, who is a famous photographer, and I think he was also like a director or actor. Anyways, he was a big shot back then. He was at the plaza taking photos of, all this stuff. He also would have celebrities come to his hotel room and he would take their passport photos. And one of his friends was Greta Garbo. This was during the 1940s. He also actually would repurpose old hotel furniture and art to make it the room that he was in his own. So people would do that. They would go into this hotel room and be like, I don't like what you did. I'm going to redo it. Yeah. And some of it was really ugly. And the plaza was just like, okay. Again, the plaza's like adaptable. They're going to make nice with everyone, especially if you're rich.
Yeah.
And they, people were like, I want green and zebra. And they're like, okay, we just brought all this European beautiful gold and paintings and like worth millions of dollars. But if you want the zebra couch,
you can have the zebra couch.
With like your peacock just hanging around the room.
Continue to pay us a yearly rate and you can have your zebra.
Oh my God. Because so many of those kind of people. And then there was also Marlene Dietrich. She takes a year-long hiatus at the plaza and lives in something called the Lady Mendel Suite. I don't know if that still exists. Who takes a year hiatus at the plaza?
That sounds great.
Yeah, that does. I really want that.
I really want that.
Yeah. People are like, what do you want in the whole entire world? A year-long hiatus at the plaza.
We need a few advertisers for the podcast now so that we can reach our dream goal of a year-long hiatus at the plaza.
if the Plaza wants to advertise. I mean, we're doing it for free for them. What are we saying? So the designer, what I wanted to say, there was a team of interior designers from Paris and New York. They meet at the Plaza to design the first celebrity suite for Christian Dior. Then that suite gets taken over by Frank Lloyd Wright. So it's just like one celebrity after another. But yeah. And it's right. Frank Lloyd Wright was staying there while he was designing the Guggenheim Museum. That's crazy. I love it. But that ends, like, that information is at the end of, or the beginning of the 1950s. So
yeah. So so that brings us to the start of World War II. So that's going to be, I think, for our next episode, that's where we'll start.
Yeah, but should we end off? We shouldn't talk about World War II.
All I have for World War II so far in my notes is conservation and restraint.
Okay,
so yay, more restraint.
Yeah, we'll talk more. We'll talk about World War II and how in 1943. Well, we can go over that in 1943. So we weren't even involved in the war yet, were we? Yes, we were. 1941. 1941. Sorry, I failed history. No, I didn't. But I forgot. And so, the hotel's not in good condition. Even with the Persian room, it's still struggling. And in 1943, Conrad Hilton buys the hotel. So remember, right before the Depression, the hotel was worth $13 million. And after the Depression, it was worth not $13 million. He buys it for $6 million. And by the way, the Plaza was made for $3 million. So the Depression did a lot of damage. But Hilton came along, and he already had hotels and all that stuff. And he made some changes. Not everyone liked it. But he had to do what he had to do to keep the Plaza running. I think that's what it was, right? I don't know exactly. I'm sure I didn't agree with everything he did. But one of the things was that, but it kind of makes sense because it's disgustingly hot in New York in the summer. He put air conditioning in and replaced the Palm Court glass, like the beautiful stained glass ceiling with air conditioning. And I think that was everyone was like, no. And back 1940s air conditioning, it wasn't small.
Yeah. Probably or quiet.
Yeah. So eventually they changed that because of technology and
the Widows
looks.
Definitely had a few things to say about his changes. One of the ones, though, he wanted to update the breakfast menu at the Palm Court, and they threw a hissy fit about that. Any change, people throw hissy fits, and they march in the streets, which I understand. But he also is dealing with like a hotel that's going through a rough patch, and he's a hotelier. He already has successful hotels. Like, I would trust him. Let him try a few things. Also, how different can breakfast really get?
Like, what did he want to do?
The book didn't say.
He wanted oatmeal
he wanted to
instead
update
of like
But
what,
there's only so many breakfast foods in America. Like, you can't
especially
really
in the 1940s.
Yeah.
What were there 3 things, and he wanted to add one more thing? It's not. Yeah, you're right. There's not many on there, anyways. Wow, those widows. They're a hard crowd to please. I tell you that. You did anything. You look at them the wrong way, and they're like, they were tough. But Hilton, he did some repairs to the place, and he owns it during World War II, right? He basically owns it. And just like whenever there is a big change in the world, the Plaza does take a hit, and they were also willing to because of the war effort. So they cut back on, on things. They had to ration.
Sugar, stationery, everything.
Yeah, they were also creative with the way they did things. I feel like it wasn't very sanitary back then. Like, we don't have enough napkins. I guess I'm going to use my blouse and my pants. Like, what did people do? Like, that's pretty, like, the sanitation part always gets me.
Well, I'm sure it's the Plaza. I'm sure they used.
I don't know.
Maybe they shared napkins. Like a
I
napkin
can
per
see
people.
something
I
happening.
feel
there.
like if they were gonna maybe be a little lenient with the rations, maybe it was with the sanitary things like napkins.
No, they probably couldn't do laundry. They didn't have material. All the material went to the war effort. So it was like no napkins. And
Maybe they cut up their old curtains. I don't know.
maybe they did. Those are very fancy napkins.
Yeah. Brocade.
Yeah. Also really uncomfortable. Like imagine. Yeah. I feel there was some stuff when you read about just during World War II, and they're like, we had to ration this, and people drew on stockings. I'm like, what the fuck? Just don't draw anything. Why even waste the pencil?
Right.
Use it to write. I don't know. Use it to do anything
to line
else.
your eye. Like,
yeah.
Come on.
To literally anything else. To write yourself a check. No, I'm kidding. Obviously. It's just like, I don't know why the silly things people did, but I guess you know
that's a little normalcy. You're
Yeah,
used to having
yeah.
stockings. You want to look
But
the way
that's-
you're used to looking.
That's true. I'm so mean. I'm so mean to the women that like worked so hard to, like I wouldn't be able to
All
survive.
they wanted was stockings, Yael. Let them draw on their
I
legs.
know. It's just funny to me, but I guess I'm not even thinking about it. We do weird things too. I'm being mean. I'm just worried about the sanitation. That's not anything to be concerned about.
Yeah.
But like
I'm sure it was
I'm
fine.
sure-
I mean, it's
okay.
not like it was like the 1800s. I feel like sanitation really made
It
leaps
did.
and bounds.
It did. I mean, I think about their lack of refrigeration and just how quickly food goes bad and how much they needed food and how many people got sick every day. In general, just like the population of the world. They're like, this meat is going gray, but we don't have any meat and we don't have the rations for it. And my ice box melted. I can't come to work tomorrow. I had dinner tonight.
I've used that excuse.
Yeah. That's a different problem.
That was because I had an indigestion because my bath was too
No,
hot.
yeah, right.
So,
That's a big,
yeah.
all the celebrities are struggling with that
problem.
these days.
It's a problem.
Okay, so World War II. And anything else we want to, before we close out the first part of our plaza?
No, I think we really
Yeah.
said too much.
I think we did. And we didn't even say enough.
Yeah.
That's what's crazy. There's even
that's why
more.
we had to pick and choose because we just couldn't.
Yeah, and whoever is listening to this, and I don't know why you're listening to this, but thank you. If you want to call us out and tell us what we're missing, you could do that. Leave a
You can
comment.
absolutely do
Yeah,
that.
I don't know if I'm
In-
going to leave you my email.
In complete sentences. though,
Yeah.
please.
No, I want to hear it all. Broken English and everything. We prefer it in a different language. This way I don't have to understand
right.
it. And I can just assume you said nice things.
Exactly.
Because ignorance is bliss. Okay, so that was our first episode of this podcast that we made.
Hotel history.
Yeah. But stay tuned for more. And we are really stupid for taking on such a big hotel for our first
Really are.
episode.
This is
but-
never happening again.
Yeah. Well, it won't because I don't think there's anything
No,
quite like
there's
the
nothing
plaza.
quite like the plaza.
Yeah. I mean, we'll find out. But it's a good learning experience.
Yeah. So our next one will be maybe a hotel that just opened. Its history will be this long.
So Tuesday, they hired a new bartender. It's me.
Exactly. But if you have any stories yourself of time at the plaza, maybe family stories of the good old days, anything like that, we would love to hear those as well. So, in fact, we'd like to hear those more than complaints about our lack of research. So,
Yeah,
send us
that'd
those.
be nice. We already know.
Yeah, please know anything that you think we've already thought it and said it aloud.
Yeah, we are our worst enemies.
So,
That will end the podcast there. Thank you so much. We suck.